On October 6, 2016, I was in a plane crash. Totally destroyed the aircraft. I lost an engine and there was nowhere else to go. So I crashed into a forest. It's around 70 miles an hour in the equivalent of a soapbox derby car with an engine right in front of my face and a 7-foot 6-inch propeller. Got to the hospital later. They told my wife when she showed up, we need to put him into a medically induced coma. I teleported right into a post-apocalyptic landscape, and hovering above me were the biggest, darkest, most menacing looking clouds I'd ever seen. Like the mother of all storms was getting ready to unload. My name is Jim Bruton, and on October 6, 2016, I was in a plane crash. Totally destroyed the aircraft. I lost an engine and there was nowhere else to go. So I crashed into a forest. It's around 70 miles an hour in the equivalent of a soapbox derby car with an engine right in front of my face and a 7-foot 6-inch propeller. When I finished crashing, there was nothing left of the airplane. It was gone. It was just matchsticks. And I had ruptured both lungs, broken all my ribs. My right leg looked like a pretzel. Other than that, I was fine. But luckily for me, there was a man fishing nearby, Greg Gubitosi, who became a friend, and he saw everything. So he called 911, and while the helicopter was coming in, he kept me propped up so my ruptured lungs had a chance of getting some air into me. Anyway, I got to the hospital later and escaped my restraints. So they re-restrained me, and they told my wife when she showed up, we need to put him into a medically induced coma because we have a week's worth of operations. We could lose him at any time. And in truth, I did die 5 different times during that week-long period of a coma. While they were working on me during that week, my transcendental experience was a little different than usual NDEs. You know, when you read about a lot of NDEs, they go through a tunnel, they see dead loved ones that have a great comforting influence on their being there. And then they're shown a life review, and they can see how well they did, and they judge themselves. Nobody's judging them. And then sometimes they might get a big message or see angelic beings, and then they go home. They go home because we know their story. Mine was not like that. I teleported right into a post-apocalyptic landscape. Like imagine New York or Los Angeles absolutely destroyed, whether it's by nuclear war or an asteroid hits, something like that. It was absolutely devastated. And hovering above me were the biggest, darkest, most menacing looking clouds I'd ever seen. Like the mother of all storms was getting ready to unload. But I had no fear. I was just very aware of being a conscious being. It was like I was watching with my observer mind rather than thinking about it with my reactive mind, the mind that functions in the world. I looked off to my left and I saw the only thing of real interest there, and that was a sculpture of an egg standing up on its end. And it was probably about 3 or 4 stories high. So, it could have been like 40 to 50 feet high. And it was made out of open lattice work. Just a band, as if it were bands of metal that together just kind of shaped an outline of an egg. And I walked over to it. And when I did, I could see these gears floating inside, like just a spin in the air. Some were very definite. Some were more like ghost-like, right? And as they moved around, they could just pass through each other. And it didn't, it was physically impossible, but it didn't seem to mind. And if I looked at each gear, really focused on it, a video feed played in my head of what that gear represented. And in short order, I realized I was seeing events in my future because I saw my daughter, who she's like 17 or 18, as a mother with 2 children. Oh, okay, well that hasn't happened yet, so that's in the future. And there were a couple of other things I saw that indicated these are things that are yet to come. And then I I was curious. I was like, wow, I want to see what these gears felt like. So I put my hand through the open lattice and one brushed by my hand. And when it did, I doubled over in pain, like right in my stomach, like intense nausea. And I reflexively grabbed the gear, pulled it out through the open lattice work and dropped it or threw it away, right? Got rid of it. And when I did, all the remaining gears started spinning around like they were recalibrating for the loss of one. Okay. And at that point, I said, like, what's going on? It's like I thought it out loud. And that's when like this unseen voice came and kept me company the entire way through. And, I said, where am I? And it said, you're in the in-between. I said, in between what? It said, everything. You're between past, future, life, death. You're standing inside the eternity of a single moment, a moment that goes across universes. It said, do you remember the world to which your body belongs? And I said, no, I couldn't. I was trying to. I had no memory of life here, and I was actually depersonalized down to nothing. I had no idea of who I was. I just knew I was this conscious being, but I didn't have my individuality, my personality. I didn't know what my name was supposed to be. I didn't know I'd come from living here on earth. I was really in, that's called being present, right? It said, these are future moments in your life. It's as if I were having a review of choices remaining to me in my future from the life I had lived. Makes sense, right? But for me, this made a lot more sense because I can actually do something about that. Now, when these choices are presented to me from my future, think about it, some of them could be very tempting. Like if you choose this, you'll have a ton of money. You choose this, you'll have a ton of power. The typical things we fall for, even if it's a sense of connection or I want to, go get a big degree and help the world, whatever things like that have to do with staying in the world, staying focused on the world. The only thing left to me was pain. Because if I were to see a desire that had something to do with making a lot of money, well, if all my desires have been stripped away from me, being rich, being poor doesn't mean anything because you're a blank slate. But pain, you'll still get. So the pain those choices would cause me was my guide. And it's kind of humbling in a way. I didn't have a mantra, I didn't have a religious ideologue or anything like that. It's like, no, we're stripping everything down. And it's going to make it real. You don't have all day here, or all week, or all month, or all year, even though we can certainly say time flows differently. But there was an urgency to getting as much done as possible at the time. Every time this thing recalibrated, I'm seeing the same futures remaining to me pass by. I said, I don't even know where or when these futures happen. And the voice said, knowing what comes tomorrow, answers to what comes tomorrow, is that's a waste. You don't need to know what's coming tomorrow. It's better to understand the design and better to understand the process of unfolding with the design. Basically, it's as if he said, don't have faith just because you know the future. Have faith in me. And it was almost a sad, plaintive request that spoke to our separation. As I looked at all the gears, all the moments in my future that were discarded, it was a big pile. I said, it looks like if I don't have a bad life, I have no life at all. I said, am I going to die sooner from doing all this? And it said, your number of breaths are already counted. I will worry about your last one. And it said, well, for those who make poor use of their choices, offering fewer possibilities could be called mercy. I said, I see it all. I can take it all in, but clearly I'm still missing something simply because, this is new. And he said, so what am I missing? He said, what clearly stands before you? Grace. No one deserves salvation. They can only receive it by grace. It is your birthright, but you have to choose it. And it said, you're here because you prayed to be here. It said, and now the man who fell from the sky is not the same who flew into it. Based on what my family and the doctor said, I came out of the coma, but for like a full week after that, I didn't have a functioning mind whatsoever. Let's say about a week after I came out of the coma, it's like that's when my mind actually just kind of came into focus. I remember that exact moment. I didn't remember crashing. It didn't look good because my engine stopped and I saw my propeller stop. I got it started one more time, it started, and then it cut off again, and that's the last thing I remember. I'm still up 1,000 feet. As I came to, like I said, I'm kind of surprised. I was really just thinking about it the other day, thinking, isn't it strange I didn't say, what the hell happened? What am I doing here? Who are you people? But I just remember feeling kind of good. But as I'm coming back, over in my mind is my near-death experience, just playing over and over. And with each iteration, there's more detail. There's more emotional impact. There's more looking deeply into it and seeing how the logic retains consistency to a fractal level. The deeper and deeper you go, it just keeps repeating itself. That's the pattern he was telling me to have faith in, right? Another memory came as well that had to do with something that happened to me when I was a kid in June of '69, when I went to church to get my answers, and he showed me this along with my near-death experience. And he was saying, because that was where I made the promise, and your near-death experience was the fulfillment of this promise. In fact, your whole life has been a fulfillment. The first person I shared my NDE with was a morning nurse. I noticed sometimes she would just hang out, like she liked hanging out. So I said, can I tell you this thing that's going over in my head? And she said, sure. So I told her my NDE. She was the first one. And she started crying. I said, why are you crying? I said, you're a nurse. She said, I don't want you to die. I said, you're a nurse in a hospital. You see people die all the time. She says, yeah, but you're magical. And I said, can you explain that? She says, yeah. She said, everybody here gets like 10 minutes of their doctor's time a day. For some reason, in the middle of the day, I will see 3 to 5 doctors in here talking to you for an hour and a half. I walk by the door because I'm snooping, and you're talking about everything except your medical case. Even if you go to a place that could look scary, kind of like where I went, it's still a spiritual place. And when you come back, you bring some of that radiation with you. And of course, people are going to be drawn to that, because at the root of this is remembering a connection with God that we may have forgotten. But it is our natural state. It's an original state of grace. And there's something about it that's in its memory calling us. And then finally, 7 weeks later after my crash, only 7 weeks later, I was back home. When you've had a huge spiritually transformative experience, it really helps if you can talk to somebody who is knowledgeable about it, or a fellow or sister experiencer who can say, yeah, I've had one, even if it's totally different. I get where you're coming from, because what it's leading to is the integration process. You're asking, now what? What's next? How's everything changed? How did the entire world change, right? So there are all kinds of ways people wrestle with this. A spiritual journey is one that speaks to leaving the world behind. Because now, instead of the intensity of the world drawing you in, it's the subtlety and the sublime nature of the higher planes that starts to draw you. And not everybody's finished playing in the sandbox of the world. And that's okay. That's why we come here, to ride the rides. Just like you go to Disney World. You don't go to Disney World just sit there on the bench. You go, I want to ride every ride. I want to have a full experience. And that's why, I think that's the similar dynamic that keeps people's attention focused here. And you can't go around popping bubbles. As your spiritual path emerges from your near-death experience, you just have this respect for people. You don't want to pop their bubbles. You have an instinctive knowledge of the quantum leap you've taken. One of the really coolest statements I ever heard was this: on the field of battle, when a samurai draws his sword, but he throws the scabbard away, it's because he'll never need it again. On this day, he is free. Think about that. You're going to die. And that is the ultimate statement of freedom. Now I am free to fight my best. Living or dying has nothing to do with it. I'm in the flow of fighting because that is my dharma. That is what I need to do today. And I think we should live every single moment of our life with that much surrender and that much abandon, that much quiet intensity. And so whether I talk about a surfer on a surfboard or a samurai on the field of battle, or you're at a soccer game for your kids, or you're just and even in silent meditation, it should be with that kind of surrender to the flow, that kind of surrender to God, and just let the magic come. I've actually learned that God really loves our sense of discovery. Just like if you give a child a present and it tears into the package, that's the best part, because of this discovery, this anticipation, this aha moment that's coming. And then of course we love to see their joy with whatever it is we've given them. And God's pretty much the same way. He really loves to see us discover. That's why, think about it. If we were born here and we knew all the answers, why am I here? Why don't I go back, where I could be closer to Him? So as you learn how to let go of your will and just follow the will that seems to be presenting your path before you, this is when you start to see a record number of synchronicities. And those are the little things that tell you, I'm on the right path. Again, let it not be our will, but God's will. And then that magic will be right there with you. And it will show you. It will show you it's there, and it will show you you're on the right track. I would say the hallmark of these beautiful experiences is one that makes people feel more and more connected. It may be that we're connecting to each other, but it's really connecting to the flows that come through us. It's connecting to God. And like I said, I think it's in some ways remembering some state of being we once had that we're aching to get back to. And these are the little things that remind you, it's real, it's there. It's there for the asking. All you have to do is choose it, just like with my gears. So my current focus of my activity in the NDE world is making a short film. I'm making it with a friend, Gary DeMoss, out on the East Coast. We have some great interviews in there, PMH Atwater, Dr. Mary Helen Hensley, Rob, Melanie, and Maria Gentile down in North Carolina. And the whole thing is to explore not so much the superpowers you bring back after a spiritually transformative experience of talking to people who've passed away or healing or telling the future and stuff. It's really about how you take a spiritually transformative experience and integrate it into your life to become a better human being. Now that you have this incredible lens to look at life through, let's go back and look at these things we sometimes brush over and take for granted. Let's look at them in a new way. With this, again, the lens not of answers, but of understanding. So this is part of that continuing internal logic I was given, but I saw it. And so anyway, that's my journey now.